This video will contain spoilers for Season 1 of House of the Dragon. On this channel, we have previously covered a theory called the Grand Maester Conspiracy. Originating from A Song of Ice and Fire, I believe it is currently being confirmed in House of the Dragon, with multiple hidden proofs throughout Season 1. The reason why I take the revelations in this series very seriously is thanks to the brilliant work of showrunner Ryan Condal, who masterfully adapted the series from the Fire and Blood book. He revealed in an interview with Deadline that co-creator of the series, George R.R. Martin himself, is, quote, very involved. Generally, is George and I in communication. I send him everything. I send him outlines. I send him scripts. I send him cuts. I send him text messages. I send him questions. Why did you do this? What does this mean? Who is this person? We stay in constant communication. He's very active and reads a lot and gives a lot of feedback. Which is exactly why in Ryan Condal we trust, because just like us, he's a massive fan of the books who very much respects this universe and the world that George R.R. Martin has created. Quite the opposite from George and Benioff and Weiss, who, he said, quote, kept him out of the loop on 4 Game of Thrones seasons and doesn't know why. The reason why he says 4 seasons is because George left the writer's room after season 4 because of a disagreement he had with Benioff and Weiss. So, part 5, King Viserys and the Baelon the Brave Assassination Revelation. You may be wondering, who is Baelon the Brave? King Aegon, the Conqueror of Westeros, had a son named Aenys who became the second king. He was Baelon the Brave's grandfather, and his son Jaehaerys became the longest reigning king in Westeros for 55 long years. Then Prince Baelon the Brave became a father of his own with King Viserys and Prince Daemon. In this clip from the final scene of episode 4 of season 1, King Viserys Targaryen calls upon his hand, Otto Hightower, to hold him accountable for the death of his father, Prince Baelon the Brave. Baelon held the position of King's Hand before Otto was selected to serve Jaehaerys during his final days. Viserys describes Baelon as being the apex of House Targaryen, a young and powerful dragon-riding knight who was the first Targaryen to be able to tame the dragon Vhagar since Queen Visenya herself righted him to conquer Westeros. In this epic monologue, Viserys is implying that the death of Baelon was too convenient, claiming that the events that followed the passing of Baelon and even later on his beloved wife, Queen Aemma Arryn, as well-calculated moves, adding that House Hightower benefited so much from these events, gaining a new hand of the king in Otto, and a new queen in Alicent, to have been simple chance coincidences. This scene revealing the final conversation before Otto was dismissed from his position as Hand of the King was never revealed in the book. Instead, the books only state that Viserys dismissed Otto because he kept insisting on putting Aegon as the new heir instead of Rhaenyra. This revelation is so massive because it provides one of the strongest proofs in House of the Dragon and in this series, confirming the Grand Maester Conspiracy theory as being an integral part of George R.R. Martin's plan since the 4th book of A Song of Ice and Fire was released, A Feast for Crows, when Archmaester Marwyn introduced the theory. My father was a hale and healthy warrior and dragon rider. He had a long reign ahead of him. Jaehaerys had just reigned for 55 long years. Baelon the Brave could have easily reigned for a few decades himself. Then Viserys says at the peak of his abilities, Baelon became a knight at the age of 16, entering the lists as a mystery knight. Baelon unhorsed 5 great lords and knights before falling to Sir Rickard Redwyne, one of the greatest knights at the time. Sir Rickard helped him to his feet, unmasked him, and knighted him on the spot. Rider of Vhagar. Vhagar the Conqueror, one of the 3 dragons used by Aegon and his sisters to conquer Westeros. A dragon so large and powerful that if he were to fall in the wrong hands, would lead to devastating consequences for Westeros. Question 2. Who benefited? In Book 1 of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Game of Thrones, Varys says the following quote, "Oh, indeed, Cersei gave him the wineskins and told him it was Robert's favorite vintage. A hunter lives a perilous life. If the boar had not done for Robert, it would have been a fall from a horse, the bite of a wood adder, an arrow gone astray. The forest is the abattoir of the gods." I want you to look at these two specific lines. A hunter lives a perilous life implies that in Westeros, the forest is the best place for someone to be murdered without attracting too many questions, even a king. Adding that the forest is the abattoir of the gods, making fun of the fact that the gods of the forest are the humans themselves, because George R.R. Martin doesn't believe in God, and I'm not sure Varys does either. A great royal hunt. A few days later, the king dies and Cersei becomes the second most powerful in the realm. This is a perfect parallel to Baelon, how he went to a great royal hunt, and 5 days later, the soon-to-be king dies, and Otto Hightower becomes the second most powerful in the realm. I only now realize how well calculated it was. But Alicent. He says that because House Hightower even benefited from the death of Baelon by gaining a brand new queen in Alicent Hightower, the second ever Hightower queen since Cerise Hightower. And if you watched part 3 of the series, you remember that Cerise Hightower was butchered by Maegor the Cruel. Question 3. Who has the power to cover it up? As Viserys said, Prince Baelon died of a burst belly. His belly swelled and hardened, and the pain grew so severe it left him bedridden. The book's description of Baelon's burst belly aligns perfectly with the symptoms one would experience if their appendix was to break. And this is exactly why no one has ever doubted that Baelon the Brave died of appendicitis, until Viserys Targaryen revealed his theory that it was a well-calculated move by Otto to replace him as the new hand, and by the Grand Maester Conspiracy to get rid of House Targaryen. To answer this, let's look at the Grand Maester timeline that I created. In 44 AC, Grand Maester Benifer, the only Grand Maester to survive Maegor, served for 14 years and died of the shivers. Then came in 60 AC, Grand Maester Elisar, known to be very opinionated. He served for 37 years under King Jaehaerys and died of old age. Then in 97 AC came Grand Maester Alar. He only served for 4 years and died of a heart attack. Then in 101 AC came Grand Maester Runesitter, who arrived shortly before Baelon fell ill and served for 15 years, whose death was unknown. Looking at these quotes from Fire and Blood reveals that in 101 AC, Prince Baelon complained of a stitch in his side while hunting in the Kingswood. Runesitter, the new Grand Maester, only recently arrived from the Citadel after Alar was felled by a stroke. He was able to bring the prince's fever down somewhat and give him some relief from agony with milk of the poppy, but his condition continued to worsen. Notice how it's written that his condition continued to worsen after taking the milk of the poppy, very similarly to how it happened for King Viserys. And in part 4, we analyzed the milk of the poppy and found a quote from Archmaester Marwyn through Mirri Maz Duur, where she said that the milk of the poppy should not be taken to allow the body to stay strong to fight the poison spirit. On the 5th day of his illness, Prince Baelon died in his bedchamber in the Tower of the Hand, with his father sitting beside him, holding his hand. After opening the corpse, Grand Maester Runesitter put down the cause of death as a burst belly. Now remember how we said that Archmaester Gildain is the writer of Fire and Blood? George R.R. Martin wrote the entire book as a history book within Westeros, written by the point of view of an Archmaester of the Citadel. Who has the power to cover it up? Archmaester Gildain writes that Runesitter put down the cause of death as a burst belly. Whenever Archmaester Gildain described the death of any other character in Fire and Blood, he states the death of that character as a fact because he probably confirmed it through multiple sources. But for Baelon, he writes that the burst belly diagnosis was put down by Runesitter as if he doesn't have any other source to corroborate it. So, isn't it weird how Grand Maester Runesitter arrived shortly before Baelon fell ill? He arrived literally right before the Great Royal Hunt, where Baelon died, as if Grand Maester Allar, who mysteriously died of a heart attack right before, after only serving for 4 years, had been murdered to allow Runeseeker to come in and commit the murder of Baelon. Maybe Grand Maester Allar wasn't murdered and really did die of a heart attack right before the Great Royal Hunt, and then Grand Maester Runeseeker came and finished the assassination plot that Grand Maester Allar was going to commit anyway. But the fact that Allar only served for 4 years when all of the other maesters around this period served for over a decade is just a little bit suspicious. What else did they cover up? To be able to find the first Targaryen assassination, let's look at this timeline of major Targaryens. Prince Aemon, the heir, killed on Tart accidentally when a Mirror scout was trying to target the Lord standing next to Aemon and threw a crossbow bolt at Aemon instead. He died in 92 AC. Then in 101 AC died Prince Baelon, the Spare, who was famous for always striving to equal his brother Aemon in every achievement that he accomplished. He died of a burst belly. Then came King Viserys, known as the Conciliator, who reigned for 55 years. He died of old age in 103 AC. Then, in 129 AC, died King Viserys, the young king, from throne cuts, which, if you watch part 4 of this series, you will find out that this was not true. Now, the first question that came to my mind was, did Prince Aemon really die accidentally on Tarth, or was he murdered by someone sent by the Grand Maester Conspiracy?
And then, Aemon dies accidentally when a Mirish crossbowman shoots him by accident.
In this clip, we see that George R.R. Martin confidently confirms that Aemon really did die accidentally by a Mirish crossbowman. So the first Targaryen assassination by the Grand Maester Conspiracy really was in 101 AC with Prince Baelon the Brave. They called them the Heir and the Spare, so once the heir died accidentally, it was a perfect time for them to kill the Spare and be rid of both very talented and powerful Targaryen princelings. But why wait until 101 AC? Indeed, it does make sense to take advantage of the accidental death of Prince Aemon. But remember what else happened in 101 AC? The Great Council. And we're not going to talk about this in this video, but a lot of people think that very shady stuff happened in the Great Council that elected Viserys over Rhaenys. So, during the reign of Viserys, between 48 AC and 103 AC, there was an heir and a spare, and this term comes from the following quote, which is very important. From the loins of the old king and his beloved queen sprang such a confusion of claims and claimants. Then many maesters believed that the dance of the dragons, or some similar struggle, was inevitable. This was not apparent in the early years of Viserys' reign, for in Prince Aemon and Prince Baelon, his grace had the proverbial heir and a spare, and seldom has the realm been blessed with 2 more able princes. Then in 92 AC, Aemon Targaryen, heir to the Iron Throne, dies on Tarth. Then in 94 AC, Balerion the Black Dread dies of old age less than a year after Prince Viserys claims him. Then in 100 AC, on the first day of the 7th moon, good Queen Alysanne dies a full century after Aegon's conquest. Then in 101 AC came the death of Baelon the Brave, the first Targaryen assassination by the Conspiracy, which makes perfect sense that it was the first because after the death of Aemon, of Balerion the Black Dread, the most dangerous dragon, the death of good Queen Alysanne, and the upcoming death of Viserys the Old King, there was no better time for them to make their move than in 101 AC. With the upcoming Great Council that was going to elect the next king, all they had to do was kill Baelon the Brave and make sure that Viserys the Young King would be elected king. Sir Otto brought his wife and children to court with him and served King Viserys faithfully for the years remaining to him. As the old king's strength and wits began to fail, Sir Otto's 15-year-old daughter Alicent became his constant companion, fetching his grace his meals, reading to him, helping him bathe, and dress himself. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I am Aegon the Informer, and you have been informed.